right, so welcome back to Global Card Collectors. Today we have a special guest from the land of Portugal, talking to us from the United States, named Bryan. Juve Lau is his Instagram handle. Maybe you can be more precise on that for me. I'm curious about the name of it as well, like the origin.
Yeah,
But yeah, welcome to the show, Bryan. Good to be with you.
awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
So yeah, can you tell me a bit more about your handle? What it
Yeah, I
stands
mean,
for and
of course. So it's honestly, so I'm a sporting fan. For those of you who don't know, if you can tell from the jersey, but it's actually Juve Leo is one of the ultra groups for sporting. And when I first began watching sporting, I just remember always seeing them at the stadium. So I kind of made a play on words with it. It's a similar name, but Leao means lion, which that sporting symbol is a lion. So it's kind of just a play on to that ultra group's name because that's what I remember when I was young.
very cool, very cool. So you grew up a sporting fan. How did you become a sporting fan? Just let me take a step back for the
Yeah.
audience. Sporting is in the Portuguese league. We're talking soccer today. And Bryan has an extensive collection, historical, I think, and contemporary. He's going to share some cards, of course. But yeah, how did you become a sporting fan?
So, I mean, for those of you who are familiar with Portuguese soccer, the most three follow teams is Sporting, Porto, and Benfica. 9 times out of 10, if you go to Portugal and you meet someone, they're going to be a fan of one of those three teams. Can't remember what happened. I just remember that I grew up and I just clicked more with Sporting. My first game was a Champions League game between Sporting and Fiorentina in 2009 that I remember watching at the stadium. And just ever since then, I just fell in love with the team, the culture, and the history. And here I am, today, 27 years old now, and I'm still as crazy about them as I was when I was a kid. So
Right on. So was there a particular player then that caught you or?
yeah, Lietzen, he was a Brazilian striker. One number 31. I actually wore his number pretty much growing up playing soccer because of him. So he's a player that I followed extensively.
Right on. So you played all growing up or
Yeah. I played a lot of times. I played on my school teams and stuff like that, and I tried to emulate Lietzen, but not as good at all. So
okay.
yeah.
Right on. And okay, so we came into contact through a Discord channel, Soccer Study. He
Yeah.
was kind of Andre, also Portuguese, Portuguese guy, and he was really I came across him through YouTube videos, just kind of
Same way.
same for you. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Very knowledgeable guy, and I felt like broke it down for beginners very well. Like one of these early voices for me that was like, be careful with modern stuff, this kind of
Yeah.
like, just learning the market and rarity and scarcity and these things. So I feel like I owe him kind of a solid for kind of basing me in the fundamentals more. So that's how you got back into cards as well, or how did you get
Yeah, so
cards?
similar to you, I know we spoke about it before. Similar to you, I actually used to collect and focus more on NBA. I was a big NBA jersey collector, particularly game worn items. And I just remember one day, I was always curious about the card market and collecting cardboard. But NBA market, NFL market, they're so far along that I feel like I can never acquire any of the items I really wanted because that market's at a whole different stratosphere, in my opinion. So I started looking up soccer cards. Similar to you, I came up on Andre's YouTube channel, and it was investing in greatness with Cristiano Ronaldo. And I watched that whole video, and literally at the end of that video, I said, "I'm selling all my jerseys and investing all that money in cards." And that was 3 years ago, and here I am today. So honestly, my my love for the hobby all began with Andre's channel, and then with him, I found other collectors, and yeah, I just fell in love with it. So
Cool. It's a great Discord. I feel a little bit out of my element. You guys know more than I do.
yeah,
But I learned a lot from just kind of there was, the
yeah,
Champions League match last week with Real and Man City. You guys were just going at it, and then you get into a
yeah,
discussion of the top five players ever and stuff like that. So it's a fun place, but a lot of knowledgeable people there. Um,
100%.
and so you and I connected kind of because you really caught my
A player.
attention. Yeah, a certain player.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe you can pronounce his name better than I can.
Absolutely. Ricardo Quaresma. I remember I was looking for his cards, and you messaged me saying that, hey, I'm looking for like similar stuff. And I remember you telling me that if you saw them, you were probably going to buy them before I do. And then, but I don't know how you found out about it. I'm assuming through YouTube or through contact with other fans. But growing up, he's one of the three players that I would try to like emulate my game by. And I think a lot of Portuguese kids did the same because I mean, to me, Ricardo Quaresma, he was like our Ronaldinho, like just this guy that could do anything with the ball. And he came through Sporting's youth academy. I don't know if you knew that, and then he ended up going, making his name really at Porto. And a lot of times you'd think, oh, this guy's for a rival club, so we should hate him. But there was just no way to hate him. He was magical on the pitch and one of my favorite players growing up. So
Yeah, he has the same rookie card actually as Cristiano in Sporting Kit.
yeah,
But I discovered him. I moved to Turkey in 2011, and
yeah,
I think I started going to some matches, Beşiktaş matches, and he was playing for him. And yeah, he would do these like I forget, I don't know what you call them exactly.
Trivella,
Okay, there you go.
Trivella cross outside of the foot. Yeah,
Yeah, outside of the foot and just like score goals that way. I was like, this is awesome.
yeah,
So he's my favorite Beşiktaş player that I've seen or kind of
yeah.
witnessed. Just so much fun, and I don't know, he was great. So then he went to Barcelona, I think, after Sporting.
Yeah, so he went to Barcelona after Sporting, but they had so much top talent there, and he said it himself. He was kind of arrogant and thinking that he was good enough to play, and the coach said he wasn't ready, so he didn't want to take that time to develop, and he ended up going back to Portugal. I think in a swap with Deco because Porto had Deco at the time. So Deco went to Barca and Quaresma went to Porto, and the rest is history, really.
Okay, okay. Yeah, maybe it was about a year ago. You're like, oh man, I need to get some Quaresmas. Like some. Are there any one-on-ones out there? And I don't see them. Have you come across
I've
anything?
never seen it. Never seen one. I don't know who has it, who's hoarding it, but I've never seen it. I think we talked about the only numbered ones I think exist. It's like a 2016 Prism, which is from the Euro,
Yep.
and then I think you told me there was like a Tops. There was one of the Besiktas kit you were told me about, but I've never seen it before. So
Yeah, museum. It's Topps Museum 2017 because that's the one Beşiktaş year where they're in a
in the
UCL.
Champions League,
Yeah. And yeah, it was 2 years ago, so I'm kind of before I think you were kind of thinking about it, but it was just on eBay, like found the serial number, gold out of 50, number 7. So
wow,
it's Beşiktaş kid. It's awesome. Like I'm
yeah.
probably content with that. Um,
Oh, you do own that one.
I do. Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, okay, I'm jealous. Man, we need to make a deal then.
I'll tell you this, man. For me personally, I really like the 2016 Euro Prism,
Yeah,
um, and I saw some silvers come up recently, but there's just nothing else, numbered of him that comes up from Euro Prism. I mean, a red would be pretty sweet, I think.
yeah. Oh my God, it'd be amazing.
Yeah. There's a Cristiano on eBay right now, red that kind of like keep thinking I'll throw an offer at, but don't
Yeah.
get it done. But
I think it's an important set if you're a Portuguese fan or Ronaldo collector because that was his biggest win. Was the Euro. So to me, I think that if you're investing in Ronaldo, I would probably look at those type of cards first. I don't even have one, but it's something I do want to get eventually. So
yeah, yeah. The Reds are out of 149, but they tend to go for more just because the color match is
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
But yeah, if any of those pop up, I'll let you know.
Please do.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be the two guys hunting Quaresma cards, as far as I know.
As far as I know, yeah.
Good to deal. Okay, so Sporting, how's Sporting doing this year?
Top of the league at that. We're 7 points ahead of Benfica. There's 4 games left in the league. We only have to win 2 of those. So 2 of those wins secures the title. Probably the title game in quotation marks was 2 weeks ago against Benfica. We played them at home. It was 1-1 and 90th minute winner, and place went crazy. So it was an exciting time. So I'm actually trying to go to Portugal for the celebration if it happens, but we'll see.
Okay. Are you going to try to time when they actually seal the
So
deal?
yeah, I mean, I've been doing the math. If they win the next 2, it'll be May 5th. But the problem is the game next weekend is against Porto away from home. So I don't know how if we're gonna win that one. It's kind of a tough game to win, but we'll
Yeah.
we'll, we'll see after next week. Have a better idea.
Okay. That's interesting. And have you guys won recently, or is this?
Yeah, we just played yesterday. Sorry, the title.
Yeah.
2021 was actually the first time
Okay.
I remember us winning. We had a 19-year drought before that. Unfortunately, as a sporting fan, I've gone through more downs than ups. I've seen their worst season ever, and then a lot of losing. So it felt good to finally see them win in 2021. But I mean, personally, this year's team is probably the best team I've seen in my lifetime from Sporting. Yeah, it's an exciting time to be a Sporting fan right now.
And would you say like Benfica, Porto, Sporting, how do those kind of rank, kind of over the decades or something?
Well, I mean, over the decades, it's definitely been more a two-horse league with Porto and Benfica. I think early 2000s until like the 2010s, Porto really dominated. Then Benfica had a good period, I think, between I think it was 2009, 2010 to like 2015, 16. They really started winning a lot. The last couple of years, though, it's been split actually. Since 2021, all three of them have won the title once. So Sporting won in 21, Porto 22, Benfica 23, and I think Sporting is going to take it this year in 24. So getting a little bit more even now.
Okay, good to hear. That kind of sounds similar to Beşiktaş. I'd say we're the third dog behind Fenerbahçe
Yeah,
and Galatasaray historically. I mean, they've won more titles. It's indisputable.
yeah. I mean, I think the Turkish league. We talked about it before. I think both leagues are actually kind of similar. I think they're very similar in terms of both have a big three. Obviously, Galatasaray, Fenerbahçe, Besiktas, Porto, Sporting, Benfica. I think the biggest difference is that I think Turkey's mid-table clubs are better than our mid-table clubs. I mean, I think
Hmm.
Braga has grown a lot in the last couple of years in Portugal, so we're kind of getting a fourth team now. But when you think about the Turkish league, Trabzonspor, they won the league recently, and they're a pretty competitive team. I think Basak Sihir, I don't know, I think I'm butchered the name, but they won the title recently as well. So there's a little
Yeah.
bit more variety in Turkey in terms of winners compared to Portugal. But I think in terms of both having a big three, it's a similar league in that aspect.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You got it right. And I think Borsa also won once in the last 12 years or
20,
something.
2011, I think it was versus four. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of these crazy years. Fener thought they had won on the last day, and
Yeah.
it was it was kind of fun. I mean, generally like Galatasaray fans, it's good being Beşiktaş as a foreigner because the Galatasaray
Yeah.
Fenerbahçe thing is just kind of like,
Oh,
I'm out of
it's like
that,
Portugal.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Is it similar? Yeah.
I mean, it's I think I mean Sporting and Benfica are the biggest rivals because of just how close they are. But in terms of the last 15, 20 years, the fact that it's been Porto and Benfica winning back to back, between the two of them, that kind of made the rivalry a lot thicker. And those games were bigger in those years. So
Okay. So I mean, I think I already kind of had to become a Sporting fan. Just, I like Quaresma. I like Cristiano. We'll talk about him more. And
yeah,
and now I know you, so the deal is signed.
I'm
I'll,
glad.
I'll
Another
support
fan.
for I'll support Sporting in the Portuguese league. I'm always looking for reasons to. So,
Appreciate that.
yeah, this is good. I like it. So any other kind of similarities you see between the two leagues with Turkish league?
I mean, like I said, we talked about the big three part of it. But the one thing that Turkey has over Portugal is I think that the Turkish clubs they have more money, so they definitely in recent years were able to invest a little bit better. The only thing I noticed, I know we talk about similarities, but I'm actually gonna say a difference is I feel like the Portuguese league they kind of invest more on young players and developing those players, bringing them to the top leagues, whereas Turkey they try to bring in the bigger names, or even if they're old enough. But I remember at one point Galatasaray had Schneider, Drogba, and like all these guys. And even this year, Galatasaray has an insane host of talent of guys who used to play in some of the top leagues. Um, but I do think both leagues are similar. I think though that the fan base in Turkey is probably a little better. Whenever I see the highlights on even on beIN Sports, even the smaller clubs, stadiums feel like they're packed all the time. So it's a fun league. I follow, like I said, I know a little bit about the league. I remember a lot of historic players that play there, so it's definitely a fun league to watch.
Okay. Any particular? Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned a few. You mentioned a lot of the big names.
Alex from Fenerbahce is one. When I was a kid, I remember seeing a lot. Alex was a hell of a player, the Brazilian. Yeah, he was awesome. So
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name. I just had it, but then it slipped me. There's a guy in Beşiktaş who won a title. He came from Germany just for like one season in like 17 we won with him. Really good player. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, Alex, I believe had a statue or still does outside the
He
stadium.
might. Yeah, I think he does. I think he does
Um,
in Fenerbahce.
yeah, they're huge fans of him. I mean, I think kind of the greatest is probably Haji. Going back to Galatasaray days. I mean,
Hmm.
I guess I mean you weren't watching soccer then, probably just
No,
based on the
not
timeline.
then. The name doesn't ring a bell now.
Yeah, he's a Romanian guy.
Okay.
And
Oh, Haji.
Jorge
He has a
Haji.
son that plays for Rangers, right? His son plays for Rangers.
Yeah.
I didn't know he played for Galatasaray. Okay, that's good to know. I never knew he played for Galatasaray.
Yeah, I mean he played for Barcelona and somewhere
Yeah,
else. But then kind of as you described, came to Galatasaray towards the end of his career. And
yeah,
I mean, he's like God here to Galatasaray fans, and
yeah.
they won the I forget what it's called then the Euro, the second
The
tier
UEFA Cup.
UEFA Cup.
UEFA
That's
Cup.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember I had a little disdain for Galatasaray in 2013 because we had a very promising young player at the time, Bruma, who came through in our team and he was doing excellent. And Asian kind of got in his head, but he ended up going to Galatasaray, and I was so mad because he was our most promising young talent at the time, and he went to Turkey and I hated it. But yeah, so
yeah. I mean, my complaint with the Turkish teams is kind of what you're saying is they'll win the league, qualify for Champions League, and then
mhm.
they start spending, right? It's like, all
Yeah.
right, let's do well in Champions League, and usually that doesn't work out, and then it's a financial thing. So these clubs like really up and down. You can kind of like,
It's like a yo-yo effect.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it is fair to say in the Portuguese league, you guys are, as you said, developing younger players more. So it's more steady, I would imagine, in terms of your performance and such, right?
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, I think that our league overachieves in terms of our European exploits. Like Porto and Benfica, I think pretty consistently make the round of 16 and then the quarterfinals of the Champions League. If you go look at Europa League, a lot of times our teams do, make it far. I think in 2011 we had three teams in the semifinal, and the final was Porto and Braga. But I think our teams do compete relatively well. More so, 10 years ago than now, because with all the money these days, especially now in France, it's hard. Our league is just dropping in the aspect that it's just hard to compete financially with these clubs for these top talents. But I do still think our teams. I think our teams are respected in Europe. I would say. I think when other clubs come against them, like okay, Porto, Benfica, Sporting, like these guys are good teams, especially in Portugal. But yeah,
It seems like a tough league to me. Just it's tough play. Like, and how would you compare it to Netherlands?
So similar to Turkey in the aspect of there is like a big three in all those three leagues. I do think that the Netherlands is a lot more attacking though. I think there's a lot of goals scored in the Netherlands. One thing I like about that league is that the smaller teams they do go at the big teams, and that's how you get these big score lines. But the smaller clubs will go to PSV, they'll go to Feyenoord, they'll go to Ajax, and they'll try to attack them. Whereas in Portugal, what you see commonly is these teams almost all park the bus. Against the big three, they all parked the bus. The only team who's broke that mold is Braga, which I think is great for our league because their growth in the last 10 years, they've kind of been a thorn in the butt of the big three in Portugal. But they're one of the only teams that actually go at and attack the big three and make them uncomfortable. But besides that, our league is very defensive in my opinion, whereas Netherlands is just gung ho, all out attack, and you see plenty of goals all the time.
Okay. Okay, that resonates with me as well. But
Yeah.
good to kind of hear you talk that way. And Portuguese national team, how are we feeling about the Euros this summer?
Excited. I think since I've been watching, this is probably the best team since '04. With the likes of Figo, Rui Costa, and a young Ronaldo at the time. I think it's a good team. I think we lack, though. I think as a team we're good. I think we lack like a big superstar. I think if Ronaldo was 29 in this team, I would honestly say we'd probably be favorites. But Ronaldo's already 39. His impact isn't going to be as big, obviously. So it's more of a collective team. But I think there's a lot of talent in this team. I would be shocked if we left earlier than the semifinals. But yeah, I like our chances this year. I think we have a good team.
Okay. And Ronaldo will play. I'm sure he'll be on the team.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's going to be there. I think it's
And
probably going to be his last competition. I do still think he can, contribute to winning in the team. But it's, it's gonna. I think it depends on the team how he's performing going into the Euro. He did great in qualifiers. I think he was the second top goal scorer, the third in the Euro qualifiers. So he still has it in the box. I think that in terms of finishing, he's still the best finisher we have on the team. The
okay.
problem is his overall play isn't the same because he is older now. But yeah, I think we can still see some Ronaldo goals at the Euro.
I mean, to me, he reminds me of LeBron James. Just kind of the longevity, like, I mean,
Yeah,
he's kind of like so, fit and kind of, he's still a
yeah.
force, even though he's older and what, he's 38 now, 37 maybe.
39 now, 39.
Oh, 39. Well, I think
Yeah,
LeBron's 39 as well.
yeah.
So there you go.
I agree. I
So
think they're similar.
sorry.
I agree. I think they're similar as well. I
Yeah.
think the longevity aspect of it, definitely think they're similar. Especially the accolades and those longevity records that they both have, both with their goal scoring records now. So
Yeah, yeah, that's an obvious similarity. Points and goals do matter. And well, while we're on him, yeah, I mean, I think another similarity is like LeBron isn't necessarily loved.
yeah,
There are people who certainly do, but there is kind of a general media or narrative, and I think a lot of people kind of are put off by LeBron and just kind of his
yeah,
persona and words and whatever. Um, you know, I was telling you before we talked, just that I got back. I mean, I didn't get back. I really discovered soccer and learned about European soccer through cards.
yeah,
Kind of, as you mentioned, this transition from NBA to soccer, and I've been following Besiktas and the U.S. men's national team, but that's kind of a limited American understanding. So COVID really got me into it with cards. And I kind of came back and I was like, it was just very clear that people in the hobby much preferred Messi. And, I
yeah.
know this debate had been going on forever. And why do you think that is, I guess? To me, is it just I know he's good looking, he's kind of like a machine, hard to stop, all these things. But
Yeah.
yeah, you have, I'm sure, more nuanced understanding. I'm curious why he's not as loved, I guess.
I think the arrogance part is part of it. Messi's always been like the nice guy, the humble guy. And Ronaldo's always been a lot more arrogant and cocky. I mean, to me, when it comes to the debate, I don't think if someone thinks Messi's better, I don't think that's a wrong answer. Just like if someone says Ronaldo's better, I think that's a valid answer as well. I think both of them have enough arguments and accolades and the records to make that case to say that they're the best. So in terms of that aspect of the debate, I don't get too into it. If someone says, "Oh, Messi's better," Ronaldo's, I think it's fair. The part of me that is bothersome is you know, when you put, let's say, if someone wants to put Messi one and then Ronaldo 4 or 5, that part doesn't make sense because in this era, and I've talked about it in the Discord before, I think that their names are forever going to be intertwined. I think that the era that they played in the last 20 years, it was shared by both of them. They were both on a pedestal that no other player, it was Ronaldo and Messi were here and everyone else was way down below, and especially, if you're on the camp that says that Messi's better, which is, it's a fair argument to say, and if you want to say that it was Messi's era, Ronaldo still won 5 World Player of the Years in quote unquote Messi's era. He still won 5 Champions Leagues in quote unquote Messi's era. There's probably a 4 year stretch where he was the best player in the world, particularly in that three-peat Champions League and the Euro win. So that's the only part of me where it's like, there's a guy who was better than him at points in this era, and who shared the stage. I mean, Messi won 8 Ballon d'Ors, Ronaldo has 5 in Messi's era. So that must mean they were a lot closer than people are saying. So what I mean by that is, if you put Messi one, then I don't see how Ronaldo could be 4 or 5. Ronaldo's 2 or 3, that's fine. Ronaldo's 2, that's fine. But if you put Messi 3, Ronaldo's 4, like I feel like they're neck and neck to me. But I think it's fair arguments, going either way. Obviously, I'm a big Ronaldo fan. I'm Portuguese. Some might say I'm even biased in that aspect, which is a fair take. I'm a
Yeah,
sporting fan and
sure.
and a Portuguese fan, so it is a fair aspect to say. But there's just certain things that for me, I resonated more with Ronaldo and why I feel like he's a better player. But I don't think there's a wrong answer, to be honest.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it was the wide gap between the two that I mean,
Yeah,
even
I think that, yeah.
I mean, like even their, top rookie cards in PSA 10, I mean, I think Messi's go for three times Ronaldo's, if I'm
Yeah.
remembering correctly.
And
Um,
especially with, I think, new people, sorry to cut you off. I think especially with new people in the hobby, if you're just getting into the sport, Messi won a World Cup, all that. I understand hobby wise why Messi cards are more. So that aspect of it, in terms of the hobby in itself, I actually do understand why his cards are more. Even though, if I'm not mistaken, I think Messi has more rookie cards and like the pop is higher than like the
yep,
two rookie Ronaldo cards.
yep,
So
it's
that
like
I
twice as
felt
high.
like if that,
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like in that aspect, it might even out. When Ronaldo retires, when his documentary eventually comes out, the fact that he only has two rookie cards, and they are pretty scarce, I think, compared to the Messi ones. I think it could even out a bit, but I think in general, Messi's cards in the market will always be a higher price, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point about the timing of the boom when everyone got in, and obviously the
Yeah.
World Cup really elevated it. I think that's a very, very good point.
All right, there you go. So I'm going to share a couple cards. I mean, obviously, I think the first one someone would start out with in a Portuguese collection is always going to be a Ronaldo. So this is one of the two rookies that I have. This one's a PSA 8. I do also have a SGC 8, but I mean, we talked about it before. I think if you're getting into collecting, I think this is one of those you have to have. I know a lot of controversy with a lot of them being fake these days, but this is to me just it's a beautiful card. Portrait shot is just amazing. This was one of my bucket list cards the moment I started getting into it. And then obviously,
That's
I'm sorry.
no, yeah, I don't. Before you move on, I just want to talk about it a bit more.
Yeah,
The Europeans tend to prefer stickers, I would say, because you guys grew up with them, right? Um,
100%. Yeah.
and whereas I prefer his card, his Mega Cracks card,
Hmm.
being American. But yeah, I mean, the fakes. And correct me, you will know better. But most of the fakes have come out in Beckett slabs, as far as I understand, right?
Yeah, yeah. Most of them have all been from Beckett. That's one I stay away from Beckett, to be honest with you.
Yeah, just
That's one I definitely stick away from.
I just want to, public service announcement a bit. Stay away from Beckett slabs for really,
I
let's
would.
say, all soccer. Yeah.
But similar to what you said, like you said, you prefer the card, and I do think the card's beautiful. But there's something about the portrait shot. That could be just a sticker fan of me that I love this portrait shot of it. It really is a beautiful card in my opinion, beautiful sticker. I mean, so this is if you don't have it, and I think out of the two rookies, this one is the cheaper one now because of all the fakes. People are kind of scared. So if you could
Hmm.
find a real one, to me, I think it's something worth investing in. I think that the price is pretty low now compared to what it was and what it will be, particularly when he retires. And naturally, like I said, that Netflix documentary is going to make this boom. I think similar to the Last Dance with Jordan, what it did to that market. Both jerseys and cards. I could see the same thing happening here, especially with how cheap it is, in my opinion. But I mean,
When is
moving
this?
on.
When is this
Yeah.
documentary coming out? I'm not aware of that.
Well, so that's just my assumption. There's no actually
Okay.
documentary out yet. I would be extremely shocked if Ronaldo and Messi both didn't have a documentary on their careers. I'd be extremely shocked. So that's why I think that eventually that's just something that will happen. And I haven't heard anything, but that's just my guess for the future.
It
So
makes sense. I'm sure that'll happen.
I think
Yeah, I'll
so.
I'll keep an eye out for one of those. I tend to prefer SGC, just
Yeah.
for stickers, but PSA is higher value, and that looks nice, the PSA slab actually.
I do think though to your point, like I said, I have this one, the SGC 8, and it does look better in the SGC slab. So I do agree with you on that aspect. But I mean, like I told you before, I am a sporting fan. So a lot of my collection is there's vintage sporting, vintage of everything really. But one of the prominent players in sporting history is this guy right here, Fernando Peroteo. He's a pretty known guy in the vintage space. He there's his stuff I think is pretty scarce. But this one in particular is probably one of my favorites. It's a really this sticker is commonly found without this nameplate over here. Because this one's unstuck. A lot of the ones you find, a lot of stuff in general that you find from Portugal are stuck from albums and then people remove them. But this one is one that was unstuck. Usually with this album in particular, it would make a puzzle piece. and you would take the nameplate, and that would go on a separate page, and then the players would all go in a portrait that would form a puzzle. So,
Huh.
Fernando Peroteo, if you guys don't know about him, I look him up. He has some goal records that would probably never be broken. Just an incredible historic player in soccer in general, but especially in Portuguese soccer. Played in probably the most dominant era of sporting in Portugal, which is the five violin era. And he's probably the most famous player of those five guys. So this is definitely someone I would look into if you guys are trying to read up more on Portuguese soccer.
The
But he's
five,
a special player.
what's the five violin era?
So the five violins are the five players from Sporting. It is Fernando Peroteo, Jesus Correa, Manuel Vasquez, Travassos, and Albano. There were a quintet of players in Sporting that they just dominated the Portuguese there. I think they won 7 titles in a row. It was almost 8 in a row in Portugal, and they just dominated the league. They scored so many goals between them. Um, Worth reading into. I think when we're done with this podcast, if you have time, I would definitely look into it. But just an incredible, incredible team in Portuguese history. And I think most of our titles came during that era.
This is
So
like 19, like after the war or before the
not
war?
it's yeah, pre-war and during war. So it was like the 19. I think the first year they were together was 1939. So it was like from 1938, 1939 until like 1947, 48.
Hmm.
Peroteo then retired earlier than those guys. I think at 32 he retired, and then the other four continued to play and win titles until 49, 50. No, sorry, yeah, 50, 51. I think was the last time they won the title. So yeah, it was a dominant era, and something worth looking into for sure, in my opinion. But this is one of those that, like I said, Peroteo is a name that is known in the vintage space already. He definitely has his fans and collectors, and his price in terms of the vintage market is at a premium these days. But the other four guys, I think, are kind of relatively untapped, and they're guys. I mean, I have an abundance of stickers from them, so I think they're special players to me.
How
But
I guess how did you find this one and others in general?
almost all my collections are from Port. I source them. They come directly from Portugal. I have I'm friends on several platforms with a lot of Portuguese collectors. A lot of them are just a lot older people who have had these stuff for years. And they're the ones that have kind of mentored me and taught me on the vintage space. The same way Andre was the one that got me into collecting. A lot of these vintage Portuguese collectors are kind of the ones that kind of mentored me in terms of sourcing these items, learning about the albums, learning about the players, and all that kind of stuff. So they were all a big help. But almost my I would say 95% of my collection has come directly from Portugal. So
That's really cool. Yeah.
yeah. And then obviously a name that everyone does already know, Eusebio.
Mhm.
Incredible player, legendary player. In terms of my fandom, it's sporting and nothing else. But when it comes to cards, I don't care. Like I collect Porto, Benfica, Sporting, anything that is a historic legendary player from Portugal. I'm interested. It's our culture, it's our soccer history, and it's something that I just I love. So, but this is one of his most beautiful ones in my opinion. I did just acquire one of his rookies and a couple other one of the Eusebios that I posted on my Instagram page that I think you saw as well. But I mean, there's I don't know what hasn't been said about Eusebio at this point. What he did in the 1966 World Cup was incredible. What he did for Benfica was incredible. His goal record, his goal tally was incredible. And I mean, before a certain Cristiano Ronaldo came along, Eusebio was unequivocally the greatest Portuguese player of all time. But these two are by far the greatest Portuguese players ever. So it's amazing. I'd be shocked if Eusebio drops lower than number two in Portugal's history. But yeah, he's an amazing player. It's an amazing card, and but this is someone I think in the vintage space everyone knows about at this point. So
Yeah, I do, which tells you, he's decently well
yeah,
known.
of course.
But I mean that the color on this card is for those not watching the video it's really sharp and bright and that's cool at the background the stands. I don't know, I really like it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful one. I mean, for those of you who don't know, usually Portuguese stickers, there's nothing in the back. Like I said, their backs are always blank backs in Portuguese stickers. Very rarely do you see anything on the back, but just the image on the front and the colors, like you said, and the poses are just They really is a beautiful thing in my opinion.
Were these like cigarette companies or
No,
who
no,
made?
there were like caramels. It's like thicker
Okay.
caramels, and they were actually be glued on the album with I think it was like sugar at the time. So that's why they're so easy to unstuck. And that's how they would stick to the album. But I mean, speaking of cigarette cards, I do have one cigarette card of a pretty rare uh player as well. So I'll show that one. But most of the cards there were stickers and caramels like this. But in terms of cigarettes, I do have one, and it's a I'm not sure if you know the player, famous Portuguese player of the 1930s, Pepe, from Belenenses, which is the club I was going to talk about. But the back here, as you can see, this was a cigarette card at the time
Yeah,
from Angola. I don't know if you can see; it's
Angola.
a little blurry, but yeah,
Wow,
it's a cigarette.
Portuguese colony. Yeah.
Yeah, so cigarette card from Angola at the time. This is from the early 1930s. Pepe, for if you don't know, or for those of you who don't know, also a pretty known name in the vintage space in Portugal at this point. His cards are huge premium, probably the most expensive cards you can buy besides Eusebio's Pepe. But yeah, he was an incredible player. He died extremely young at 23, accidentally poisoned by his mother, who was making chorizos, and
Oh
she
my God.
mistaken. Yeah, he died at 23, and he died of food poisoning because his mother, she couldn't read at the time, and she mistook sugar with I forgot how you say it in English, but something you shouldn't be eating. And
Okay.
unfortunately, Pepe died young. But he was at the time considered the best Portuguese player in the world at the time. He was for his era he was magical. He was doing things with the ball that people never saw before, and his stuff are extremely rare. I know probably just only of one of the collector that has. I know a couple guys that have some, but there's one collector in particular that has, I think, every pep that you can think of, which is incredible. He's sitting on a gold mine, really. But yeah, this is definitely my favorite in the collection. It's a PSA 3. Um, it's stunning. It's definitely one of my favorite cards. It's a beautiful portrait photo, and it's a great cigarette card for sure. And you know, we I think like I was gonna say before to bring up in Portugal you have the big three. Back then it wasn't Porto. It was Benfica, Sporting, and Belenenses. Those were the three biggest clubs in Portugal, all Lisbon based. Belenenses is still around today. They're in the second division now. I think they're about to get relegated to third. So they've been going through a tough time, but they're a historical club in Portugal. They've been champions 4 times. So they're one of a small list of clubs that have won the title in Portugal besides the big three. And I mean, this is like a different one. It's from 1956. Obviously, he wasn't playing at, sorry, 59. Pepe wasn't playing at the time, but this is a pretty rare album. And yeah, it's just another nice little Pepe. He's definitely one of the three greatest players in Bonense's history, and I do have the other two that I'll get through rather quickly. But yeah, so Pepe, definitely a name to look into if you hadn't already.
That
Definitely worth looking at.
that 1930, how many copies are known to exist?
Oh, the other collector that I know has it. I know there's been three graded by PSA or two. No, I'm sorry, I lied. There's two graded by PSA, but there's another raw that I've seen. But
Wow.
there's different types of these cigarette cards. But if you combine every PEP card that exists, the pop is less than 15 for like every PEP card that exists right now. In terms of by PSA, it's smaller than that, but in terms of what I've seen with my eyes, raw or graded, I've only ever seen 15 ever. And it's yeah, extremely rare, extremely difficult to find, especially because of the area it was from. A lot of it was lost during war, damaged, destroyed, thrown out. So, but a special player, special cards to look into, in my opinion.
Amazing. I mean, it's almost 100 years old. This one you
Mm-hmm.
also found in Portugal.
And Portugal, yep, from Portugal, brought it over. Great. This is the first one ever graded by PSA. Now there's a
Okay.
second one, but this was at the time when I graded the first one graded. So it was really exciting to have and to get graded. It was amazing, really. Um,
Awesome. That's just
Beautiful,
awesome. This is great.
absolutely beautiful. And then I'll throw these two together just to kind of we're not here forever looking at cards, but like I said, more Belenenses players. These guys are actually brothers. So Matateu
Huh.
and Vicente. This is a rookie for Vicente. Like I said, Belenenses at the time was the third biggest club in Portugal. They were a massive club. Matateu was actually considered his nickname rather the eighth wonder of the world. Uh, incredible goal scorer at the time. In a game against England, he just shocked the English. They're the ones who dubbed them that nickname. All-time winning scorer for Belenenses, and then his brother Vicente, center back, who in the 1966 World Cup, he was tasked with defending Pele. So and he did pretty well. Pele actually said in an interview that he was the best defender he ever played against, which is quite an honor to say. These three guys, Metatil, Vicente, and Pepe, are the three biggest names in Belenenses history. I don't think this club gets a lot of credit these days. I think they're a massive club in Portugal, huge club. I've been to the museum, I've been to the stadium there. It's incredible, really incredible. A club with a lot of history in Portugal that I hope come back to the main leagues soon enough. But yeah, these are, like I said, magical. Fun fact as well: these guys are brothers. In Portugal last summer, I went to the museum, and our tour guide was actually the daughter of Matatil, which
No.
was incredible. Yeah, she's the tour guide at the stadium. It was incredible. She even signed a nice little autograph for me. But she was great. This is her uncle. This is her father. Just two incredible players in Portuguese history. Not ones you commonly hear about, but a lot of history in both of these guys. So
She must have been kind of like tickled meeting you, just like, you collect their cards, and did she know that
yeah.
kind of exists, or?
So she wasn't really aware of it while I try to figure out how to turn this around. So she wasn't really aware about, the Portuguese space like that in the cards, but I had showed her and she was, you can tell she was a little emotional about it. Like, wow, these people, my dad's names is still being spoken about. But it's amazing. I mean, she had so much different stuff. She showed me memorabilia that she has from her dad and from her uncle, and it was awesome. Definitely a cool experience. Like I said, the stadium was awesome. It's still one of those like antique stadiums where it kind of looks like the like an Olympic kind of stadium, if that makes sense. Like the seats aren't seats; they're like it's like brick that you still sit on. So it was super old school, and it was really awesome to see. But I'm a sporting fan, but I do hope Bill Nances do well. I have a soft spot for history and for a club like that with that kind of history. So I hope they make it back soon enough.
I mean, loose analogy for me is Leeds in the Premier League. Historic team. I
Yeah.
started rooting for them last year because they had three Americans on their team, so that
Yep.
also just kind of gets me a rooting interest or whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, they aren't they haven't fallen that far. They've held it together this year in the championship, but a storied club like that.
Yeah.
Man, those cards were amazing. Really,
Thank you.
go on and on too. I mean, I enjoyed it. And yeah, there's more on your page for those
A lot.
interested.
Yeah.
Um, and I think two things, like it's your collection is to me very unique. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on, besides the fact that we've chatted and gotten to know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
But just a focus on Portugal, that I haven't, and maybe there are others. Are there others like that kind of collect what you do, or?
In terms of an Instagram, I mean, there are others that I'll actually, one of them is called Rookies from Portugal, an incredible page. I've seen people who see my page and like, oh, you have like the best vintage Portuguese collection. No way, that guy to me has an incredible collection. You guys got to check out his page. His name is Joao. Rookies from Portugal is his handle on Instagram. He has some insane stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said. I think it's different. I think it puts a light on Portuguese culture. One thing I enjoy when I look at collection on Instagram is people who focus on that too. I think there's a couple guys. I'm not remembering the name right now, but that they collect the Dutch space a lot, the Netherlands, and like their historic players. And I think that's awesome because it's like as a soccer fan, you get to learn about these players that you didn't know about before that are historical figures in the sport and that should be known. So that part of it I think is fun, especially when people have those kind of collections. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, I think again, the soccer, football, obviously I know for Europeans, space it's new. So I mean, I think maybe other people could be inspired by this approach. I mean, just
Mhm.
historically, these are really, I think interesting items. It's just a good way to kind of get in touch with your history, whether you're
Yeah.
France. I mean, I think Niels on Discord he does France.
Yeah, that's another one.
Um,
Yeah, his is all French, which is awesome as well. Like, you learn so much. But even in terms of, I mean, no financial advice, but in terms of someone who's just starting out collecting, one of the main reasons I went with this approach is, I think it's good to have I guess, theme of what you're going for, so you don't go around spending money on everything. Because if that's the case, you will go broke in this. I mean, if you want to, then there's people who do go that approach, but there's so many amazing legends, historical figures, and rare cards of these legends that if you kind of dabble into that space of wanting them all, it's hard, and very expensive. So I think one of the key things when I talk to new collectors, and I tell I'm rather a new collector myself, only 3 years, collecting, but I always say focus on a theme, on a team, on a player, on a country. Just focus on a theme where you won't get sidetracked on other stuff, and your funds go in specifically into one specific area. So that's kind of the little advice I would give personally. But
yeah, I agree. And I mean, I personally I like these items that are, rare. Whereas
Mhm.
modern, I buy modern cards. I love modern cards. They shine. It's great. Um,
Yeah,
I have plenty of them. But the rare ones that are kind of more historical and it's just kind of you feel more special, like you have something more special. At least I do in my experience.
yeah.
Yeah, so you're based in the New York City metropolitan area.
Mhm.
How do you interact with, I mean, do you have other hobby friends nearby? Do you go to shows? Do you
We actually just had a show. Another no name, another collector that also really helped me when I began was hooked on soccer cards. His name is Paulo. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with him.
yeah.
But he has a strong following on Instagram. He's on the Discord as well. But he actually just he did an event in the Newark area. He did a soccer event that was on Saturday. Successful. It was focused mostly solely on soccer. Giuseppe Rossi was there. He was signing autographs, taking pictures. It was cool. But
Huh.
yeah, I mean, it was a fun time. It was a good way to meet new collectors. Just meet a lot of these guys that on Instagram by their handles, and to then meet them in real person and find out their names. It was fun. But yeah, I think it's good. I think kind of like you said, I think the soccer is still an untapped space. The people who started earlier got better deals, but I still think it's cheap enough right now where you could get into the hobby and get a lot of awesome stuff. Um, and that is the thing. I think if someone wanted to get into it, now is still a great time to get into it.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think the market, no financial advice. What do I know about the market? None of us do.
Mhm.
But uh, obviously it had a huge boom, I guess, in 2020, 21, and then it's really just been kind of down since then. But I think in the last few months, it seems to have kind of hit a bottom, and I, even like Cristiano's index on card ladder is up
Yeah.
the last 3 months, and I think that's the case for a lot of cards and players, and just you know as I've said about myself, I kind of I learn about soccer through cards. I just kind of read,
Hmm.
like I read about Modric, being inspired by Boban. I don't know if you know that player. And then so I look for his cards, and there are these, stickers from Croatia that are cool. So
Yeah.
it's just a fun kind of rabbit hole you can go down and kind of learn more about stuff. Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
mean,
I
how
mean,
do you go ahead? No, go
sorry, no,
ahead,
go ahead. No, I was gonna
please.
say somewhere, to go on what you were saying. That's kind of how I got. As I got older and life gets in the way, I almost kind of got out of touch with soccer. As opposed to like when I was a kid, I used to wake up early in the morning and watch soccer through every day, over the weekends throughout the whole day. And then then I got into the NBA space like I told you about, and then soccer kind of took a back burner besides sporting. But even then, they were so bad at the time that it was like if you missed the game, it was whatever. But then, so like you said, when I got into the soccer cards, it kind of brought that spark back in me of just like soccer and just getting into it again and being in touch with, and then the Discord as well is an amazing tool. So similar to like you said, it definitely got me back into it, learning more players, learning more about the history. So it was yeah.
Right on. So I'll just kind of maybe wrap up with just a kind of a general softball question.
Yeah.
What do you love most about the hobby?
The people you meet in the hobby, honestly, the people that have share the same interest of you and the same passion. Because a lot of times, my particular friends group, they don't care about this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like you have no one
Yeah.
to talk about with it or share your stuff, share your findings, share your collection. So to have, a Discord, for example, with all like-minded collectors that you show them a piece of cardboard and like, oh my god, this is amazing. Like it validates why you're into it, and it's cool. Like I said, just everyone sharing their experiences, and even like you said, I mean, we started speaking about Ricardo Quaresma because he's Portuguese and he played for Besiktas, and I'm Portuguese, and that's your Turkish team. And then now we're here having a podcast, so it's like all those kind of things is awesome. So
Yeah, yeah, we owe this to Quaresma, man. Ricardo, thank you.
absolutely, Harry Potter, he's a magical player. So
Well, good. Yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch on any Quaresma cards that pop up and otherwise.
absolutely,
But Bryan, thanks so much for your time. It was really interesting. I'm sure the listeners and viewers will enjoy it. And
yep.
yeah, thanks so much.
No, thank you for having me, man. Thank you. This was fun.
Cool. Talk
I
to you
mean,
soon.
thank you. Appreciate it.